Back to my channel. So I'm super excited about today's video because today we're going to be talking about what it means to live your truth. Okay, and the easy answer to that is your truth is rooted in your belief system. That's really what it is in a nutshell. It's the things that you feel and you say to yourself behind the mask that we wear. And guess what? Believe it or not, we all at some point in time put on a mask when we leave our homes, so people get to see us, but they don't get to see the real us, if you know what I mean, right? But this is where things get sticky, because within each of us there is a gap between our truth and the person we show to the real world. How wide that gap may be will depend on your level of self-awareness and the layers of filters and fictional stories about who we are that we've built up over the years. So again, we're all guilty of doing this, when we put on this mask and we go out in public and we want people to think that everything is okay when it really isn't. Because let's face it, if I'm not having a good day or if I don't feel well, it's very rare that I'll ever share that with anybody, because I don't feel the need to bring other people down just because I don't feel well. So here's a great quote by Stefanie Thomas, and it says, "I wonder what we could create, achieve, or be if we could only let go of those pesky stories we've been telling ourselves." Very powerful. So let's jump right on in and start unpackaging this whole what it means to live your truth. Now, here is my what's the word I'm looking for? My disclaimer, if you will. If you haven't already noticed, I'm wearing my retainer, and that's because I've not been doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Don't judge me. I'm getting better at it. So when I stop like I just did, it's because wearing this creates a lot of moisture in my mouth. So I have to constantly swallow because I don't want to be drooling at all, and certainly not on camera. So let's jump right on in. How false stories bury your truth. It is, of course, human nature to want to be liked and respected, because let's just face it, we all want to be liked and respected, right? But in our efforts to be accepted, we often put tremendous pressure on ourselves to fit in, or at the very least to not stand out in a way that makes us feel exposed or foolish. So we end up masking or manipulating our most vulnerable feelings, opinions, and desires in an effort to avoid judgment, discomfort, or rejection. And if you say that you haven't done those things, you're telling the tale, because we all do from time to time. The challenge is that we are rarely consciously aware of our efforts to protect and disguise parts of ourselves, which means that before you can learn to live your truth, you have to get up the courage to dig down and uncover the real you behind the filters. See, the problem is that some of us have been wearing and using these filters for so long that the real us is buried so deep that you've got to dig almost down to China to find who the real you really, who you really are, because we've been wearing these filters for so long. So I want to encourage you today, take the filters off, take the mask off, and just be you. Yeah, just be you. I had to think about that, because some people are just horrible, and when they put the filter and that mask on, they're the sweetest people in the world. So, find your balance. And let's see, where did I leave off? I'm sorry, I'm back to my notes here. So, living your truth will set you free. It's important to understand that learning to live your truth isn't about changing or fixing you. It's about freeing you to be the confident, powerful person you were meant to be, and honoring that truth through actions and communication with others as well as yourself. So that's what I said. Learn to live your truth. Wipe off the filters and just be you. You'd be surprised at how many people will truly love the real you and not the you that you put on every day that you leave your home. You'll be better prepared to handle adversity. Life is all about change, and that includes occasionally bumping up against obstacles and managing unexpected detours. Having a strong sense of self of self enhances your resilience. It provides you with an anchor, and it enables you to face challenges with a more balanced outlook. Confident that regardless of what happens to you, you will be okay. And that's your key takeaway right there. You have to be confident that no matter what happens to you, that you're going to be okay. Okay? Next, you won't need others to validate your worth. Let me put a pin right here before I even jump into this. I can't tell you how many times I've met someone who always, or I should say I've met people who always need someone else to validate them. Never will Michelle need anyone to validate her. You know why? Because I can validate myself. I don't need you to do it. I don't need anybody else to do it. Learn to validate you. Stop waiting for other people to do it. Living your truth means your relationships will come, your relationships with others can be based on mutual respect rather than the disempowering need for external validation. Support is always a good thing, but when you have the confidence to accept what's right for you, it releases you from the need for approval from others. And what did I just tell y'all? You don't need approval from other people. You don't need approval from me. Do you, be you. That's all you have to do. Next, you'll have the confidence to speak your truth. The reality is that no matter how hard you may try, you're never going to satisfy everyone. And it's an illusion to think otherwise. Being authentic in the way you communicate your feelings and opinions is a core attribute of living your truth. You have got to be confident to speak your truth. See, it's one thing to know your truth. It's something different to be able to speak it. You see what I'm saying? Speak it with power. Speak it with authority. You've got to be able to do that. Here's another quote that I want to share. It's by Jean Shanada Bolin. I'm going to make sure it's in the description box in case I messed that last name up. When you discover something that nourishes your soul and brings joy, care enough about yourself to make room for it in your life. That's powerful, you guys. That is powerful. Next, you'll no longer feel guilty taking care of yourself. You would be surprised at how many people feel guilty about taking care of themselves. So many people that feel guilty about putting themselves first. Honey, I don't. Now, I don't make it a practice to always put Michelle first, but I do make it a habit of putting myself first from time to time, because what you don't want to do is put yourself on the back burner and everything and everyone goes ahead of you and you're always putting yourself last. I don't want you to do that. While men are not immune to the effects of responsibility overload, there's no question that women tend to be far more vulnerable to pangs of guilt when it comes to taking time for themselves, and society continues to drive this message home on a regular basis. Consider how often on any given day you see references in the social media to indulging or splurging or treating yourself by meeting a basic need like eating foods you enjoy or taking time to relax. Honey, can I just tell you guys that those words don't frighten me at all. I indulge and I splurge and I treat myself from time to time. When you are anchored in truth, you have a compass for decision making and establishing healthy self-care and personal boundaries, so you're not as easily derailed or influenced by external messages that encourage you to minimize attention to your own well-being. Next, finding your truth involves uncovering your truth. Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes. There's no magic pill or solution to work through the process of uncovering your truth, especially in a world that is filled with commitments, never-ending distractions, and a constant barrage of messages about who and what you should be. This is work that takes focus and is best done in a peaceful environment for a dedicated period of time. And one of the most effective ways to do this is to conduct a personal inventory. Sit down, create a personal inventory of who you are, where you're going, what your truths are. Now, following are some questions that you can ask yourself as you begin the process of uncovering your truth. Because you might be thinking, well, Michelle, that's a no-brainer about uncovering my truth. But you'd be surprised. Everybody is not able to just randomly go out there and uncover their truth. So here's some questions that you can use. Number one, what do you stand for? And you know that old saying, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. So you have to know, what is it that you stand for? And create a list. Get a journal or a notebook of some kind where you can ask yourself these questions and write down the answers to them. Because only you're going to see them, but you got to be honest with yourself. Number two, what are your core values? And again, if you're not sure what your core values are, that's a problem. So you need to sit down and think about what your core values are. Number three, what are your strengths and weaknesses? We all pretty much know what our strengths and weaknesses are, right? Again, write those things down. Number four, what limiting beliefs do you have about yourself? You'd be surprised that when you sit down and talk to people, what beliefs that they have about themselves that are holding them back from being all that they want to be. Number five, do you have personal standards and boundaries? I will say this, if you do not, you need to find them. You need to find them. You have got to have personal standards and you've got to have boundaries. And I'll say this before I move on. When you set boundaries, you have to set boundaries like the wall of China. Meaning that you set up your boundaries and you don't allow anything or anyone to get past those boundaries that you set up. Period. Because once you allow people to get around and go over the boundaries that you set up, it's all downhill from there. So you have to, I can't stress this enough, you have to have standards and boundaries. Number six, do you honor your limitations? I certainly do. And it took me a while to get to that point, but I know my limits and I honor those limits. Now, if it's something that I can change, if it's a limit that's holding me back, and it's something that that I've created up here, then I don't. But other than that, I do honor my limitations, because there's some things I know I just can't do. Number seven, what makes you happy and how can you have more of it? Again, figure out what it is that makes you happy. See, if I asked you what makes you sad, what makes you upset, what grates on your nerves, you can spit it off just like that. But if I ask you what makes you happy and how can you have more of it, most people are going to sit there going, you know what? I have no idea. Now's the time. Create your list on what it is that makes you happy. And number eight, what does your heart secretly long for? That may be a tough one for some people, but most of you all know what it is that your heart longs for. So live your truth right out in the open. Don't live your truth only behind closed doors, and don't live your truth only with a certain group of people. Live it out in the open for everybody to see. No hiding or apologizing for who you are. What do you have to lose? I mean, really, the good opinion of others? Believe me, if they're looking at you at all when you're busy living your truth, it's probably with a mixture of curiosity and an admiration for the boldness they can't muster. And this was said by Jacob Nordby. To identify, understand, and define your personal truth is one of the most important things you'll ever do in this life. How are you living your truth now? Let me say that again. To identify, understand, and define your personal truth is one of the most important things you will ever do in this life. And my question for you is, how are you living your truth right now? Okay? But I wanted to go back here just for a second. I'll do a quick recap, and I promise I'll let you be. So, I love that whole no hiding or apologizing for who you are piece. Let me just spend a few minutes on that. I will never apologize for who I am. You know, I have a funny side to me. I have a serious side to me. But then I have that no-nonsense side to me. And I'm not going to apologize for being who I am. I don't apologize for wanting more out of life. I don't apologize for wanting the best out of life. I don't apologize for having removed some people from my inner circle because we're not moving in the same path. See, I'm moving this way and they want to go that way, but I can't go that way with them because I'm going this way. I don't apologize for that. I don't apologize for being the strong-minded person that I am. See, I'm not just strong physically, but I'm also strong mentally, and I don't apologize for that. You know, over the years, I've met quite a few guys who decided things with me couldn't work because I'm so strong-willed. Now, most women would apologize for that and kind of take a back seat. Oh, not me. I'm not apologizing for that. I've always been a strong-willed person. I've always been a strong person because I've always had to be. When you become a mother at a young age, you have to be strong, because you're not only being strong for you, you're being strong for another person that depends on you. So I learned a long time ago, never apologize for who I am. And I'm telling you today, don't apologize for who you are. If people can't handle it, or they don't like it, guess what? Too bad, good riddance. Let them move on. But don't apologize who you are. Don't you ever do that. And I mean that, because I had to learn the hard way. And I would always have to, if I met someone and they felt that I was too strong-willed, I would kind of dummy it back just a little bit. But honey, I learned a long time ago, no. If they can't deal with me for who I am, then they don't need to be with me. Period. And it's the funny thing is, I've actually met on maybe 4 or 5 guys in my lifetime that said, you know, you're one of these strong women, but that's okay, because I'm going to break you. And I'm like, really? Okay. Challenge accepted. And guess what? They couldn't break me, because I don't apologize for who I am. And I'm not going to change who I am. And guess what? They're no longer around today, right? So again, I tell you, do not apologize for who you are. Be you, be true to you, and always stay true to you, no matter what other people think about you or whether they like it or not. Never, ever, ever feel like you have to take a back seat to anybody and change who you are. Okay, let's do a recap, and I'm gonna let you be. So when it's what it means to live your truth. Number 1, how false stories bury your. Well, we talked about. I'm sorry. Let me backtrack. We talked about what it means to live your truth. And then we talked about some things that go along with that. So we talked about how false stories bury your truth. Number 2, we talked about living your truth will free you. Number 3, we talked about you'll be better prepared to handle adversity. Number 4, you won't need others to validate your worth. And again, you guys, make today, right now, as soon as you finish this video, heck, even before you finish the video, stop letting other people validate you. Stop thinking that you have to have other people validating you. Number 5, you have the confidence to speak your truth. Number 6, you'll no longer feel guilty taking care of yourself. Stop feeling guilty, okay? You deserve it. Number 7, uncovering your truth. And we talked about the 8 questions to ask yourself as you begin the process. What do you stand for? What are your core values? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What limiting beliefs do you have about yourself? Do you have personal standards and boundaries? And then we talked about, do you honor your limitations? What makes you happy? And how can you have more of it? And 8, what does your heart secretly long for? And then the last thing that I left you with is stop walking around here hiding or apologizing for who you are. And your takeaway is, how are you living your truth right now? Those are things I want you to really think about. And for those of you that need to live your truth, this is your time. This is your moment. Thank you so much for giving me just a little bit of your time. Thank you so much to my new subscribers. Thank you to those that continue to support my channel and to continue to support me. I love you guys to the moon and back, and you know I do, and I mean that from my heart when I say it. But I want you to, as you go through this week, I want you to begin to live your truth. Live your truth. Did you hear what I said? Live your truth. Don't live your mama's truth. Don't live your daddy's truth. Your sisters, your brothers, your cousins, your aunties, your uncles, none of that. Live your truth. And until next week, take care.